Hi everyone and welcome to Glitch. I'm sorry, having a glitch there. Yeah, did not expect that, did you? Anyway, I'm here with Alfred and Kaijie.
Hey.
Alfred's from Techgoondu. Kaijie is from IMDA.
Yep.
Okay,
Thanks.
so we want to talk a little bit about AR and VR.
Cool.
So very quickly, yes or no, Alfred, is AR or VR fair?
Well,
Come
yes.
on, yes or no? Yes or no? Yes.
Mostly, yes.
Yes, good. We spent the entire conversation talking about why. Kaijie, AR or VR fair? Yes or no? Go and go.
Yes.
Okay, wow, very sure. Yes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this, right? Because I mean, especially in the recently, of course, we've had so much conversation in the world about this. It's been actually going on for a while now, and I think it's really you can actually really see it starting to take off, right? So tell me a little bit. Is it too premature now to think about adopting AR and VR? Or or rather, is it too premature to talk about adopting or promotion of AR and VR? Kaijie, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, I think that it's been riding the hype cycle,
Yep.
right? Especially during COVID, and then after Meta, Facebook rebranded itself as Meta, and then introduced the whole idea of a metaverse. And also
Right.
during COVID, where there was a lot of remote work, as well as a lot of these hype about the tokenomics and NFTs, etc., and how they could actually work in the metaverse, right? Right now, I think it's a little bit more of a very sobering take on exactly what is the value of AR and VR. So
Okay.
I like to always talk to corporates, and then they're always saying, hey, should I do some AR and VR stuff with my company in that sense?
Okay.
Well, I like to always
It's
tell them.
like FOMO, let's get onto it. Is
Yeah,
it?
that's right. So I think a lot of it then is more of we focus on the value. Exactly what is the problem that your company wants to solve, and
Yeah.
what is the opportunity that you want to leverage. Then we
Okay.
talk about the tech, rather
Okay.
than we put the tech
Yes.
in first, right? Because otherwise, then the tech is just like a hammer looking for a nail. Everything's a nail. Okay, let's do AR VR for my product, AR
Yeah.
VR for my work processes.
Because you don't want to have that like for the sake of, right? I mean, you want to be able to have some thought and some purpose behind it as
Yeah,
well.
that's right. So I think it's a bit of a more sober, realistic take, which is great.
Okay.
Whether all companies are wanting to jump on it, not all, I would say so, because it's usually then much more for the more well-resourced companies to be able to think about it, do first mover into this space, and start learning early, because AR VR potentially isn't really cheap as well.
Yeah.
Besides the software component, you need to get the devices.
Yes,
Right,
absolutely.
especially if you're actually talking about like headsets,
And
etc.
the training as well.
Yeah, and the training of how do you use it, because
Correct.
it's not as simple as just using your mobile phone or using a laptop. To
So it's
be
not
able to do it.
accessible in like at this point in time to everybody in that sense, because also the headsets. I mean,
Yeah.
while the price is coming
Yes,
down, it's
prices.
still expensive, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, prices have come down really
Yeah,
quite quickly
of course.
because of the product cycle, right? You've seen, for instance, like when Meta first came out with the Quest Pro, I think US 1.5K a pop.
Well, I think Alfred, you need to invite Kaijie onto your platform, and then he'll kind of do this little, podcast about. So here are the products out there. This is my top 5.
I can do unboxing if you want.
I think so. I feel like we have products missing on the table. Kaijie's going to give us the lowdown.
Yeah.
Oh, it's virtual, right?
So I'm a huge fan of Techgoondu.
Oh,
Back in those days,
really? Let's
I'll
hear
read
it.
it. I'll say,
Let's-
okay, this is unbiased. This is not brought to you by. I can trust it enough, to go and buy stuff. That
Can we
Alfred
put
will recommend.
I feel like I'm interrupt. I think I should go. I'm interrupting.
This is some romance.
something.
You're having.
Okay. I'll just leave you all to it.
Okay.
So you've always been a big fan of Techgoondu as well. Is there a story behind it here? We're totally digressing, but never mind.
Oh yeah. So I was just saying that.
He's like, sell it for me. Sell it for me.
Blushing already.
I was just saying that I won a contest by Techgoondu some like 10 plus years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
When
and
you
it
were
was,
like what?
A reader of
12?
Techgoondu.
as a student, undergraduate student, not 12. Yeah, not taking my PSLE, but
Thank you for reading.
yeah, there was there was a pair of headphones like the PSV M4U. Super expensive, almost unaffordable. But in those days where I was a student, right, I think $400-500. And,
Wow.
you had to.
I do remember your name. Yes.
Yeah, you had to
Are
write
you sure,
in.
Alfred?
I think you have to write in maybe some essay or whatever
It was,
right?
it was, so you actually assessed like the contest.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you won it?
Yes.
Do you sell it or keep it?
No, I kept it.
Oh, okay.
I kept it for about 8 years.
And then he sold it? No, just kidding.
No. And then kind of like the leather flaked.
Oh,
and I was
okay,
like, okay,
Let's
I can't
blame it on the
anymore.
humidity.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we digress.
We digress.
So we talked a
Yes.
little bit about like the adoption, and of course, the idea, the advice now is that companies understand what it is, whether it matches your product, matches what you're trying to sell, then
Yes.
get into it. Don't
That's
just
right.
FOMO like
Correct.
get in.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go in a little bit into kind of negotiating the harms, because as the real world and the virtual world starts to become really entwined, we're going to see a lot of like potential harms and concerns that are going to come into the space, right? Maybe I'll just go to Alfred first, and like you've been writing about tech for so long, right, Alfred? So if you've seen kind of the harms come out of like social media, of course there's a lot of good that comes out of technology as well, and we definitely acknowledge that. What about do you see this potentially getting more difficult in the AR VR space when it comes to?
Well, I think it's still new, as in the adoption for consumers are not quite high compared to say corporates.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, first of all, I think the definition of AR and VR is very broad.
Wide.
Yes.
Right. I mean, like if you put on a pair of goggles to fly a drone, for example,
Yeah.
is it AR, right?
Yeah.
And then we think of VR as like Meta Quest headphones. Headsets.
Headsets, yeah.
Right. And then VR is total immersion. But then also AR can be used in a lot of other things, like in the factory floor.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the medical field to learn how to say dissect a body.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
But so the very broad definitions of that, and a lot of it is really happening in the industries. So which is good, well resourced ones,
Yes.
not SMBs maybe.
Yeah.
But so when it comes to regulation, it's difficult. For consumers, it's a very niche or still very narrow thing. So, like social media, which ramped up very fast within several years, it was viral, right?
Yeah.
You added a friend, added a friend, added a friend. But so for VR and AR, the barrier to entry is still there. Headphones and I keep saying headphones.
Sorry.
He can't get over the story about your headphones. He's like a fan.
Headsets are still high barrier to entry, expensive,
Okay.
and therefore, to sort of get into that kind of addiction phase, I suspect there's still a long way to go.
How long are we talking about, right? I mean, because like, are we going to be having this conversation in a year or by like 2 years? Like, people would have kind of pervaded every household. Like, what are we looking at in terms of a time frame?
So no, I mean, it depends on how we see AR or VR, right? I mean, if it's like,
Because industry-related wise, it's really kind of catching on,
it's
right? Like you
happening.
Yes,
said,
it's happening.
gaming companies have devised, like, let's say, even for medical, right? With AR, and then you have the body, and it's like the graphics and everything are so much better, right? For doctors and stuff.
Medicine, surgery.
Exactly. So what are we
but
looking
like
at?
if you're looking at something like say Meta's virtual world, right?
Yeah.
Horizon World.
Horizon World,
I mean, if you consider it as VR, I mean, I don't know what the dangers of that are.
Okay.
I mean, one danger would be like you're kind of stuck in there. I mean, their ideal of that is that you'll be doing work or remote working in that world instead of coming to the office. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, but who would like to put on a headset for 8 hours and be virtually there?
It's true.
I mean, so it's difficult. We don't know what the usage patterns are.
Yes.
I mean, for consumers and end users yet, I suspect. I mean, yes, gaming. That's one.
Gaming will lead the way,
Correct,
right?
but
in that space.
the headset doesn't last that long. I mean, the battery runs out
2-3
unless you
hours.
kind of get plugged in. I mean, PlayStation has had the headset for several years now, but I don't know what the numbers are, but it's not like a super high percentage of overall, say, gamers that play the games.
Yes.
So I think when it comes to regulation or the harms, for consumers, I think it's still a while
to go
back. But for businesses, I mean, you can imagine, obviously security is one thing, right? I mean, you worry about that because as with any new interface, you suddenly add an attack surface for people who could come into your thing and potentially add fake stuff into your training manual, let's say.
Absolutely.
So that would be the danger.
There's so many issues surrounding it, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
very small issues from how it translates into daily life that will go into the virtual space, and all the issues that we have to deal with in the daily life, pretty much we have to address there as well.
Correct. Yep.
So that's going to be, I mean, it's definitely going to be quite a transition.
Yeah.
And so if somebody does come along and fix, because I know Meta has hired like thousands
Right.
of programmers that are working on it now, right? But there are a lot of people who still say that it's still far off.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not really taking shape in the way that we want to see it taking shape. And initially there was a lot of hype around
Yes.
it,
Yep.
and then now it's kind of like we're
Died
not
down.
really sure
Yeah.
what's happening. So, what do you think though? I mean, do you think that, okay, like just for a Singapore context, right? Where are we now in terms of like the consumer engagement in the AR and VR space? Is it still a very low adoption, or we're seeing?
Right. But I think as mentioned, the use case has to be clear. So, for first of all, the barrier to entry is high. Secondly, I mean, what is the sort of enjoyment or payoff, for that to overcome that barrier to entry?
Okay.
So was for some, I mean, I've tried it myself, and it's
Yeah.
really quite an eye opener,
Yes.
literally, right? And you're fully immersed. Well, not fully. You're more immersed than.
Because you can go in a cinema and talk to somebody else
Right.
from another country.
And you can kind of look up and down, left and
Yeah.
right, and it's
Yes.
nearly 360, right? It turns
Yes.
around kind of is near 360. But the sort of immersion is not complete yet.
Yes.
But it's still a much improved version of say the flat screen. So that's that. But the whole lot needs to be done between now and maybe in future.
Yeah.
The headsets are really lighter, much lighter than before.
Yes.
That's one.
Yeah.
They need to be cheaper.
Yeah.
And the experience needs to be tweaked even more. It's just like the early days of, say, cell phones, right?
Yeah.
When you smartphones, let's say,
Yeah.
it was difficult. I mean, try typing on a smartphone a website address or something like that. It was difficult. So it's the kind of interface issue that manufacturers are still trying to overcome.
Yeah.
So yeah, it might take time, but I suspect the young people are the ones who do it more easily. It's just like phones, because I mean I don't know if I should say it on TV, but I mean on.
We'll guess your age.
No. My kids, I let my kids try a VR headset before.
Yeah.
It's not child abuse, right? I think it's
No,
okay.
no.
But,
I don't know. Did they consent to it?
Parent.
so they love it. So I think it's consent.
okay.
So I tried it many years ago, right? And I remember because it was an undersea kind of thing. So you would go and you would be in a sunken ship. And I actually, when the whale went past me, I kind of like ducked a little bit, right? And this was in 2014. So that was quite a long time ago. I can imagine. I mean, even now when you you have your Quest 2 and you go into the cinema and you see and you can talk to people and all that, right? And I remember there was another scenario where we're on the kind of a top of a hill and you are in a VR and you look down and it's like this really deep valley and it actually kind of has. I mean, you kind of know, but at the same
but
time
you
you're
feel
like
the vertigo.
you feel
Yeah.
a little bit like, oh wow, that's
Yeah.
really
That's
deep
Right, that's
drop.
right. Yeah.
You know, so
true.
I can imagine that was 24. So like in 10 years that would have really kind
Yeah.
of grown. Right,
Yes,
from
that's
there.
right. I think two key things for a consumer uptake that it's important. I think one is actually connectivity and bandwidth that we have
okay.
with 5G rollout and going beyond that.
Yeah.
Actually, we can look forward to a lot more of that because when you think about like the richness of the content, today
Yeah.
it's still cartoony in that way for some of them. It's because
Catching
you
fish.
can't actually, you can't actually stream so much information over a very limited kind of a network in that sense. And what's more is that it's no longer a one-way download. It's
Yeah.
also
Right.
it's also the feedback that's very important, especially if you're interacting with like dozens of people that's out there.
Speaking of interacting with dozens of people, so let's think about the AR VR use, right, in the social media aspect. Okay, so do you think that social spaces in AR VR will have a greater impact than our current social media platforms? Because instead of watching your influencer do your favorite dance on TikTok,
Yeah.
join him in the VR space and do the dance together with him or her, right? I mean, don't you think that that would accelerate kind of the transformation, or would that have a greater impact on users? Like if I could meet like the people that like I've idolized or the people that I love to follow on TikTok or IG or whatever it is, and I see them in the VR space and I
Yeah.
can actually interact with them, don't you think that will be a huge kind of desire to then go into that space?
It could be avatar of that person as well,
Yes.
celebrity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Definitely.
For a guide, just look at what's happening in the game world.
Yes,
I mean,
Fortnite,
Like,
yeah.
Fortnite hosts all these famous.
Yes, Travis
Yeah.
Scott, Ariana Grande.
Yeah.
These are like total money spinners as well for corporates who want to actually do it. I mean, the other ones are like brands who actually say, okay, I'm going to create this brand brand extension or a virtual
I
experience.
think Adidas does a lot of that with their fashion.
Yes, correct. So Dolce & Gabbana, etc. Even Forever 21 on Roblox. These are things of actually brands looking at how can I further their brand experience to new segments of customers.
Although
and then
Roblox
also
is in a bit of trouble,
value.
but never mind.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think that social media, with the brands coming on and can people...
That's right. I mean, a lot of it is that AR/VR today development still isn't cheap. So only the strong brands, well-resourced brands, and brands who are looking to get more customers, especially in the world of very commoditized products like fashion. Right. They are the ones who are usually then thinking about, okay, how can I give the customers a different experience and engage them in a very different way.
So tell me, who is a singer or a pop star that you like?
Wow. Okay.
Come on, go.
My age again.
What about you?
Oh my god. Top of my head. Some obscure.
GNR, Bon Jovi, come on,
okay,
U2, Bono, any...
U2, yeah.
Okay, U2.
Yes.
So if you could meet Bono there...
Or avatar of him.
and,
It's probably not him. It's probably like an AI version of him.
That's true. So that will go into the kind of the whole AI conversation, right? So if you can have like a generative AI or Bono or something. But then there's a whole other conversation that I will have in another episode about AI and ethics. But if you could meet him, I mean, you could have a conversation with him.
I mean, I always say, people think of AR and VR as like a totally new realm, but it's not. I mean, look at games. I mean, our idea of what's virtual and what's real has really been adapted through games. I mean, we accept games as a place where we socialize, we meet, we date, okay, not me. I'm too old. But I've seen like younger people, like they sit next to each other at a cafe, at Starbucks. They're playing games. Next to each other, they're dating. It's a modern dating thing.
I would really like to play Overcooked in the VR world. I mean, I really would like to play Overcooked. I feel like, it's because it's already when you play it on Switch, right? It's like so intense. Like people are like fighting. Like, can you imagine like if you're playing in a VR world, it's good workout as well.
That's what it is, right? I mean, you're sitting physically next to each other. Virtually, you're online. So, I mean, okay, not wearing goggles, but our idea of what's virtual and what's real has already been adapted over the past several years, and especially for young folks who grew up with playing games. For them, an avatar, is linked to a real person or not, they know. And socializing with even like a fake or AI bot, let's say, or NPC, let's say, not playing character in a game character, it's a natural thing. So, when we think about social interactions, what we need to do next is to sort of move that into more interesting, more immersive interface. So it's an interface question, not the idea of interacting with something that's virtual or real. I think that's already a bridge that's been crossed. So it's the interface that's, I think, the challenge now, because nobody likes to put on goggles, pair of goggles, just to do something. 15 minutes, half an hour nowadays, the battery life. So that has to be overcome.
The Apple glasses are coming out next year, and I think everybody's very excited about it. And let's see, because that would be like kind of AR as well, right? You have a new take on it, and that would be very interesting. I feel like we should really do this kind of thing on Techgoondu, right? It's like, let's talk about products that are coming out. So what about you? You look like a Swiftie. Are you a Swiftie, Kaijie?
No.
You look like a Swiftie.
I'm a very Mendo pop kind of guy.
Okay, sorry.
So things like Mayday.
So you weren't lining up for the tickets, okay?
No,
although
unfortunately.
Go Swifties. I love Taylor Swift.
That's right.
Okay, so I mean, if you interact with, I don't know. Okay, you got to help me in this department. Name me.
Mayday, Xing, for instance.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. So I mean. I think it would be
sorry,
great
I'll find out
because
who you are, but...
a lot of concerts will. A lot of concert tickets, including Taylor's, the Era tour, right, sold out within seconds.
Yes, exactly.
And from a music company point of view, it's like, how can I better extend this to others who really want it? And potentially then I can actually create more value as well for Swifties, right, fans, as well as generate more revenue for myself. This is one ability to be able to do it. But of course, sometimes we think of it as a single player thing, right? Which is I go in, I watch a concert by myself. I mean, that has always been there. You can actually go to IMAX, you can watch a concert experience there. It's nice. But I think the other way of doing it is to actually watch a concert with your friends next to you.
Absolutely.
And if
it's
you
like a whole Netflix party.
Yeah, that's right. It's a watch
like
party.
being in the show.
In that sense, right? And you're never going to buy 10 10 tickets with your 10 pals, especially for a Taylor Swift concert in that sense. But you can actually watch together with them, almost as if you're just right next to them, together.
Or friends from around the world.
Yeah,
which is
that's
great.
right. And it's a community because you guys all love that music.
Okay,
right?
so the music industry, you heard this one here first. So we do get a cut of it, do we? Okay, so let's talk about like job opportunities, right? Because the AR/VR space obviously will bring about kind of more job opportunities for Singaporeans.
That's right.
So I guess questions is what kind of job opportunities are we looking at? And also, very important question I'm going to ask is what are the skills of the future? Yes.
We are
going to celebrate.
Yeah.
Please tell me it's communications. This is like what I do for my livelihood. So
yes, I would definitely think so. Actually, most of the time when we talk about AR, VR, most people would think about how do you create 3D content, etc. I mean that's one part which is a little bit of a given. I'll talk also a little bit about the job opportunities for the rest of the economy, especially when corporates are actually taking on a lot of these AR, VR kind of technology, right? I think what's going to change quite a lot of is that you can see training in AR and VR environment already, right?
Yes.
So for instance, we spoke a little bit about in the healthcare industry, surgeons, maybe they may be trained in certain kinds of surgeries in an AR, VR environment. Even healthcare professionals, how do you care for different kinds of patients undergoing different kinds of conditions? That's very important, right? Especially when we have a manpower crunch. But that's not also going to be said like it's going to I'm going to train you 100% in AR and VR. Nobody wants that because then you don't really have that physical kind of training. People will still be scared.
We need human beings. We need human beings.
That's right. So
still need human beings.
Yeah, so that's right. I mean, then therefore AR, VR, we're kind of looking at it more as it's a complement to what you're doing existing, right?
Okay.
Maybe I can train you 50% of the time in that environment, and then 50% of the time I close the gap with actual in-person training, right? And that's going to be much more helpful because you don't need to go down, to the training center. From a corporate point of view,
absolutely.
Yeah, from a corporate point of view, they're going to say, okay, I think costs will decrease because I may not need to hold so many sessions anymore.
Correct.
You can learn at your own leisure, at your free time, right? So it definitely then makes a lot of sense from a corporate, ROI point of view. Yeah.
So again, coming back to what you said, it depends on the industry that you're in, especially, right?
Yeah.
And Alfred, what do you think are the skills of the future that are really going to be valued?
Well, I think. First of all, I think you need
I feel like this is like a WSQ conversation. Skills future.
Certification.
Use it, or it will just be there. Okay, yeah.
The business case is always the most important, right? I mean, once that makes sense, then everything follows. In other words, it's a new interface, right? But the purpose of it is still the same, to train, right? So for trainers, you need to learn the interface. Just like when, say in the media, for example, I mean, when in the past, it was just like you're print, you're a writer, or you're in broadcast, you're a presenter, or TV guy, or audio. But now, it's everything, right? Because the tools have become available and easier to use.
And it's also kind of crossed over into all the different platforms.
So same thing, if you were a trainer, you need to learn how to be on it. Teach people. You want to be a lecturer, for example, right? You need to learn how to maybe produce content that can be consumed on these kind of new platforms.
Absolutely.
So I think.
I feel like you reach out to more people also.
Right.
Because like even as a trainer, I know that I can, kind of reach cross borders, right?
Correct.
I don't have just have to train within Singapore, for example.
Correct.
Yeah. And well, it's new ways. Of course, at the start, there's going to be a lot of hype, and the cool factor is there. So a lot of the focus will be on like the interface rather than the content.
Yes.
But as we learn from over the years of upheaval in the media industry, right? I mean. The
content is key.
Content matters.
So, I mean, at the end of it, what are you getting out of that whole experience, right? Is it just a cool factor, or like you actually learn how to be a nurse or a doctor or a contractor or a cameraman?
So I think that's great. That's great because I mean, somewhat journalism trained, right? For myself also, the whole idea of it is like writing content, right? How do you develop content for a new medium? I think that's different. And how do you evaluate also the effectiveness of that? Previously, it was like, okay, you get it on the front page. Wow, this one.
Actually, this is really interesting because how do you think AR and VR will affect the way journalism is going to be? Right? I mean, I think that's going to open up, like, for example, if I want to show conflict right? It can actually what do you call it? Complement, right? Because if you're in that space, you're actually going to be able to see the devastation, for example, that has happened, whether it's natural disasters or conflict areas and wars. I mean, so many things that are happening in the world right now, and which is no laughing matter. But I mean, it kind of elevates, right, that journalistic status in a sense.
And I think that then you also get a very good sense of the effectiveness of this piece of content, right? Because there's a lot more data. So, for instance, like when we move to digital, right, there's a lot of page views, click-throughs, dwell time, reading time. Same as in AR, you can actually get to get a very good sense of what's the attention time, where's the gaze at, actually what's the most important thing that will actually work, that's most newsy. You get it in real time. You can actually also optimize it very differently, right? I think the key challenge would also be one of the skill sets that will be important more for the AR, VR professionals in that sense is how do you create content for this new medium? Because it's not so straightforward anymore, right? You could take a 360 camera and then try to do that. I think that's one for you to do. But if you're doing like, for instance, teaching people like
interactive kind of stories,
interactive stories, or you create that content, right? Do you then need someone who actually is a 3D developer to build the assets? And then how do you then scale it across different kinds of scenarios?
For example, like if I wanted to show an area that's been flooded very badly because of climate change, right? If I go into the VR space, will I be able to interact with the villager? Can I ask her questions, and will she be able to reply to me about the plight of how her family has kind of like suffered because of the floods?
That's right.
Or can I talk to a farmer who will be able to tell me like her crop,
how her crop
has been destroyed? Can I talk to a village leader?
Correct.
Right. So I mean, this would give just the understanding of the storytelling just so much like a bigger. Look, I'm an eternal optimist, and I believe in the power of technology. I believe in the power of technology to level the playing field in the world. But of course, I also am very aware of the fact that with that there will come a lot of issues that we have to deal with. I think for parents who are potentially going to be watching this show, how are they going to be able to educate the kids about this aspect, for the children to be more aware of like literacy, like literacy issues in this area, right? Before you kind of click agree, right? If you're going into a game or going into a space or going into news or whatever it is. Alfred, you're a parent. What are your concerns?
I mean, the medium is different. I mean, I always see it this way. The medium is different. The parenting is the same, right? I mean, I had this argument with I'm not going to debate with fellow parents as well. And I know a friend who's a network engineer, so he kind of strictly restricts the time with the network for the TV. The firewall is set such that it blocks.
It's tough to have a dad from the IT space. I block you. You can only see video 1 to 5.
I treated my kids with that too when they're
only
not
Paw Patrol for you. That's it. Nothing else.
But I haven't done it, and the reason is because I still want to sort of go there and say it's time to stop. But that's the reason. I mean, the bad thing about that is you get aggravated with that, and you have to keep repeating yourself. But the good thing with that is they kind of understand why. Because if you just shut it down, they don't know.
You got to kind of explain to them.
Right. The moment the sort of floodgates are opened, then it's open. I mean, they do not know why this parent of mine is keep nagging and nagging. But there's a reason for that. I don't know whether that's the best parenting tip, but that's what I would do with, not just like YouTube or screen time, with anything that's potentially addictive. And we shouldn't look at kids, right? I mean, like for my generation, for example, we grew up playing games. And,
I grew up playing games.
I have an issue, even now, I'm almost 50, telling myself to stop.
I can't stop overcook, man. I can keep going.
Right. So it's something that we struggle with as adults, right? I mean, it's very difficult for us to say, hey, stop it right now.
Yes.
Exactly. Because it never worked on us. Come on. Remember Atari? Oh my goodness, I'm so old. But remember Atari? Like, you used to play, and I was in afternoon session. I used to play it before school, and I had to go to school, and I was still like, I have to finish that level. So
just one more.
So it's another medium. I mean, AR and VR is another sort of new challenge. I mean, everything comes along. Now it's mobile phones, and mobile games, and addiction, and all that. So they've been around, but just that it moved from one device or one medium to another.
So it's just a platform that's changing, like you
TV
said.
nowadays.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
You watch MTV, you go crazy.
But who doesn't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the Muppet Show? How can you stop that? I
It's
mean,
not MTV.
and MTV, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
They say you listen to Walkman too long, you go deaf, right?
Yeah,
I mean, my hearing's still okay now.
Yeah.
But,
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Walkman.
I'm sorry, what?
yeah, so each generation kind of finds its own
Oh,
challenge.
Walkman! Oh my goodness!
Sure,
The kids are like, sorry, what is that?
What's that? What's that thing?
What is a Walkman? Let me Google it.
Mini disc.
Chat GPT,
Oh,
please
yeah.
explain to me what a
Discman,
Walkman is.
stuff like
How
that.
do you spell that again?
Yes, that's it. It's
Yeah.
coming back retro.
It is actually. The cassette tapes are like
Yes.
making like vinyl,
Vinyls,
records
yeah.
and all
Yeah.
that are making a
Lo-fi,
comeback. This
lo-fi.
is what we do to pacify ourselves when you're, I mean, like, my 40s. So, but you know, those
Nostalgia.
we're also the generation, I have to say this, I mean, it sounds obviously very defensive and terrible, but we are the generation that invented the internet.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right? Oh, wait, no, you're much younger than me. I see it's like, I'm not your age. I'm
Yes
really
lah, yes lah, yes
younger.
lah.
I'm like one cycle.
I
of
shan't
the-
betray.
I'm one cycle of the zodiac
No way.
animals younger than you.
No, not true.
Okay,
True.
so
Yeah.
so wow, we are very good at digressing, gentlemen.
yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit. I mean, we've addressed so many issues, right? I mean, even parents and kids and everything. Coming back to the idea of business transactions in the VR, the AR, VR space, right? We're going to see all these micro transactions that are going to be happening. How do you regulate it without actually kind of dampening the growth, of this technology?
I think, well, I would see it as another medium, right?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it's all
it
about
has to be
the
logical. I mean, it has to answer to some sort of business logic and as well as regulation that's applies to the other in the real world and online as well.
Because you're going to start using like kind of blockchain systems and all that as well,
Sure,
right?
but at the end of the day, if it's like willing buyer, willing seller, it's a trade.
Yeah.
If it's a scam, it's still a scam. Right?
Yeah.
But I think, of course, in the early days, there were a lot of these tokenization ideas and
Yeah.
buying a Versace bag.
Yes.
Okay, don't mention that brand. Don't know that brand exactly, but
We've
Designer
gone
bags.
past the stage of not mentioning brands.
Yeah, too many.
I didn't see that. I didn't
The
see
whole
that.
video will sound like beep 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 beep. Yeah.
Okay. Or designer bags, okay?
Yes,
Or-
designer bags.
Fashion was a big thing on Decentraland, for example, right? It wasn't
Yeah.
virtual, but it was like blockchain. So the graphics were terrible. People were just walking around like the Sims from 1990s,
Yeah.
from 2000s. But it was cool, and there were things being sold,
Yeah.
and NFTs as virtual items, which you can wear, on your character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Which you can wear,
yeah,
but
early
not
days,
really, but wear,
early days.
yeah.
So that kind of stuff, maybe there shouldn't be regulations on that, but there should be some sort of buyer beware for consumers.
Yeah.
Like if you buy something that may not work in the future, the platform could close down. You might
Right.
forget a password.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
People forget passwords for their
Bitcoin
Yes.
accounts.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not sort of any additional regulation that's on top of what is already regulating the internet, say.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of new things that come along, like say these virtual items,
Yes.
Yeah.
which people should be aware of.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's a promise in the future that if you buy one sort of designer bag, you can bring it to different games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the AAA type game studios, like you say, this is our IP. Why should I let you in?
Yes.
Correct.
Right. So these are virtual world we created with so many millions of dollars.
Yeah, because you're gonna expect it, right? I mean, if I buy
Right.
a designer handbag in real life, I can bring it everywhere and it's mine. But why can't I
Right.
do that in the virtual world, right?
That's
So
right.
I guess that's the thing. That's all that hype around it, and there's so much that it can do. But I guess I feel like this conversation is also about so many issues and challenges that are surrounding it as well. We're kind of like the, what do you call that? Wet blanket. No, but I mean, okay, look, I mean, technically these are real things that we need to consider.
Yes.
I mean, like you talk, right? The privacy, the safety, I mean, so many different issues. I mean, the AI, AR, VR conversations, right? The biases and everything. I mean, all that exists, right? And so all I can say is that you'll have a lot of work to do and you have to work very hard.
Yes. But also primarily a lot of the encouraging, especially like the corporates to also innovate, because
Yes.
actually what we believe is that the corporates will drive the majority of the AR VR innovation at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, we want to think that it will bring the world closer together.
Yeah.
maybe there are things that we've kind of ruined in the real world. Hey, you know, and as a result of all our terrible actions in the past decades, maybe I would like to think that the VR world might bring the world closer together. I hope so. Maybe that's very kind of naivete or whatever, but like I hope you know, that it will bring the world closer together, and it will, like, talking about cross-border, this will be cross reality. And
definitely, I mean,
I hope so.
A lot of the crisis that has been in the past, especially COVID, right,
Yeah.
has brought the world really much closer
Yes,
together.
I hope so.
Previously, people would actually laugh at virtual meetings and say, hey, you know what, what's the use of this? You know, I can take like a 30-minute MRT ride down and then I can meet you here. And then COVID has taught us to interact in a very different way. We can actually get onto a Zoom call.
Let me tell you a story. I actually applied for government grants many years ago. When they said, okay, you know,
Okay,
it's
again,
sounds
I
scary.
think I'm going to leave.
it was a talent grant, and so they said, okay, you know, you're doing this website. Okay, you want to hire somebody to be a writer? I said, yeah. Okay, where's your office? I said, it's a service office. I said, cannot. It cannot be virtual. This is many years ago.
Physical office.
It has to be like, you have to own the office, and the person has to be sitting there and doing work there. So, I mean, obviously the thing have changed, but yeah, it's not to harm the government.
Yeah.
Feedback session, Kaijie. Feedback session.
But to kind of show, you know, like how things have changed, you know. To your point, I mean, I share that with friends and they're like, it's totally changed. Back then it was like, what? You're not legit. You don't have a office.
Yeah.
But now it's different, right? I mean, now we accept work from home, and, you know, like you said, service officers, co-working workspaces, or whatever it is.
It's cool now.
Yeah. It's true.
So let's hope so. Yeah, you have a lot. I'm sure the feedback session can go on after this as well. But thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Kaijie. Thank you so much, Alfred. All the best. We have to go and read your blog.
Yes.
Well, I have read. It's really good. And thank you so much for both of you. And I hope we'll see each other at some virtual Taylor Swift concert, maybe perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.